Some places just feel normal. The walls are walls. The floor is the floor. You walk through, you leave, and the building never thinks about you again. And then there are the other kind of places. The ones where you step inside and your shoulders tighten before the door has even finished closing. The air feels pre-breathed. The corridors seem to know exactly how fast you are going to walk. Every creak, every hum, every little shift in the dark feels less like old pipes and more like something clearing its throat. It is not that the house is alive, not yet. It is that the house remembers who walked here, who whispered here, who didn't get to leave. Tonight, I want to talk about houses like that. How to build settings that feel like they are watching your characters, judging them, keeping score. And how to do it without ever saying the words, "The house was alive." Hello everyone, I am Manuel, indie horror author of Julia 705 and The Walk. And this is MindTwist, where we talk psychological horror, unreliable minds, and how to break your characters from the inside out. In the last episode, we stayed inside the skull. We talked about inner voices, those thoughts that don't quite sound like your character, and how they can slip into a scene and change everything. This time, we are stepping back out into the world and talking about place. Not just a creepy house as a wallpaper, but settings that feel like they are paying attention. Houses that seem to remember your characters better than your characters remember themselves. I'll walk you through how I think about setting in my own work, especially when I am dealing with rooms, corridors, rivers, motels, anywhere the story wants to step back. Then I'll read a short piece where the building never speaks, never moves, but still manages to accuse the character just by being itself. When we say haunted house, most people picture the usual suspects. Bangs in the night, voices in the walls, faces in the wallpaper if you squint hard enough. That can be fun. But for psychological horror, I am more interested in something quieter. For me, a remembering house isn't a building with a ghost. It is a building that behaves like it has a memory. The horror comes from the way that memory interacts with your character's guilt, shame, or perhaps secret. From a writer's point of view, I break it down into three working ideas. The first one, I call it the archive, the house as a storage unit for human traces. Scuffed door frames at the exact height a child used to be. A dent in the wall where something heavy hit years ago. A stain that never quite fades, no matter how often it is cleaned. None of these things move, but your character can't walk past them without feeling like the past is still here, filed away and ready to be taken out. The second one will be the mirror. The setting echoes back your character's current state. The corridor feels longer when they are trying not to think. The kitchen feels smaller when they are ashamed. The motel room feels colder when they are lying. Nothing supernatural here. Nothing has to happen which is supernatural. You are just choosing details that reflect who they are in this moment. And the third one will be the charge. This is where it gets sharp. The house doesn't just remember, it feels like it has opinions. Doors that stick at exactly the wrong time. Lights that flicker only when certain topics come up. A specific room that always feels like it is waiting for a confession. You never write, the house disapproved, but the way things go wrong makes it feel like the building is done giving second chances. Once I know which role the setting is playing in a scene, archive, mirror, or church, I stop treating it as a background and start treating it as another character at the table. So how do you actually get that on the page without just writing, the house was alive and angry? Let me give you 3 practical tricks you can steal for your own stories. The loaded detail. First is that the loaded detail. Pick an object, one stain, one piece of architecture, and give it emotional weight. A light switch with a smear fingerprint that never quite washes off. A chair that always seems to be turned a few degrees towards the door. A spot on the stairs your character avoids without really knowing why. The trick here is repetition with variation. The first time you know it, it is just a detail. The second time, you mention it when your character is under stress. The third time, you let them react, a flinch, a pause, a thought they don't want. Suddenly, it feels like the detail has been watching the whole time. The second one, the shifting route. This isn't about the building physically changing, though you can go there later if you want. It is about how the journey through the space feels different depending on what your character knows. On day 1, the corridor to the patient's room is just a corridor. After a revelation, the same walk feels longer, the air feels thicker. They notice every door they pass. From a craft angle, you slow down the walk. Once the character is afraid of the destination, more sensory detail, more beats, more tiny observations that weren't important before. You are not telling the reader the corridor grew longer. You are letting them experience how a guilty mind lengthens distance all by itself. The third one is the one-sided conversation. This is where your character responds to the building as if it's said something, even though it hasn't. They apologize out loud after bumping a door key no was already open. They whisper no now to the humming fridge as if it's interrupting. They snap stop it when the radiator's groan at the wrong moment. You never have to state that the house is talking. All we see is a person whose nerves are shredded badly enough that they start treating the environment like an aggressor. The setting feels like it's pushing back because the character acts like it's pushing back. That's the sweet spot for psychological horror. The reader is never quite sure where the line is between old building sounds and something paying attention. Let me read you a short scene that leans on those ideas: the loaded detail, the shifting route, and that one-sided conversation. By daylight, the house pretended to be reasonable. The hallway looked almost clean, if you ignored the watermarks creeping up the plaster like tide lines. Same beige runner, same polished handrail, same 3 family photos that had come with the place, faces turned permanently toward the front door as if expecting someone better. Claire kept her eyes on the floorboards. Step, step, don't look. It was only 12 paces from the kitchen to the bedroom. She'd counted them yesterday. Today it took more. The air felt thicker, like the house had forgotten to exhale. The hum in the walls wasn't loud, but it was constant. A low, patient sound that made her think of someone trying very hard not to laugh. "Not funny," she muttered. Her voice came out smaller than she meant it to. The house answered with a soft click somewhere overhead, a settling beam. Perfectly normal. She told herself it was normal. Her gaze snagged again on the mark halfway up the door frame. A dark oval bruise in the paint, the size of a fist. The estate agent had joked about kids with scooters. Too much energy, too little supervision. Last night, when she'd stumbled past in the dark, she ran her fingers over the dent and felt the splintered wood underneath. Not a scooter hate. Head hate. Someone else's problem, she whispered. The way you do when you move into a stranger's house and inherit all their gods with the cutlery drawer. Another step. 2. She tried to remember what the bedroom smelled like before the dreams. Fresh paint, laundry powder, new mattress. Now, even with the window cracked, there was always that other scent underneath. All water and something sweet, like flowers left too long in a vase. She stopped just short of the doorway. The framed photos on the wall stared past her, still fixed on the door, still waiting. "I'm not staying," she told the house. Her hand shook on the handle. "This isn't yours. I'm not yours." Somewhere deep in the plumbing, a pipe knocked 3 times. She flinched. The door didn't move. The mark on the frame stayed where it was, perfectly still, patient as a fingerprint on a file that nobody had bothered to close. Notice how the house never speaks, never moves on the page. All we see here is the repeated mark on the door frame, the lengthening hallway, and the way Claire keeps talking to the building as if it's listening. The accusation lives in the details, not in a line of dialogue that says the house hated her. From a craft point of view, the heavy lifting is that a scene comes from 3 things. Repetition with new context. The mark on the door frame isn't explained away. We saw it before, but now we know more, and it feels heavier. The distorted journey. 12 steps yesterday. More today. Same corridor, different mind. The setting feels longer because the character is afraid of the room at the end. Character behavior towards the house. Claire talks to the building. She flinches at normal sounds. She insists that doesn't belong to it. The denial tells us what she's really afraid of, not ghosts, but being claimed by a story that started long before she moved in. The goal isn't to yell, "Look, haunted house." It is to let the reader feel that this place has seen things, kept them, and is now quietly comparing your character to everyone who came before. If you want to try this in your own work, take one scene set in a familiar location, a kitchen, a hallway, a bedroom, and make one small change. Pick a single detail in that space and let it come back 2 or 3 times across the scene or a chapter. Every time it returns, shift the emotional context a little. By the 3rd appearance, see if your character is still ignoring it, or if they have started treating it like a witness. I would love to hear how you use setting in your own horror work, or which books made you feel like the house, or the motel, or the hospital was quietly keeping score the whole time. Drop me a comment or tag me on social media with your favorite The Buildings is Watching moments, and I might read a couple out in a future episode. If you want to see this kind of setting work in action, 705, The Walk, and Julia all play with rooms, corridors, and places that remember more than they are saying. You can find them, of course, in Amazon, and you can find them in MindTwistBooks.com. Please follow as well here in this channel. Next time, we are going to zoom in from the whole house down to the small ordinary objects that end up carrying all the weight. Chairs, keys, rings, those things you could walk past 100 times until one day you can't. We'll talk about how to turn harmless objects into quiet threats on the page. Until then, keep writing the kind of stories where the setting isn't just where things happen. It is who's been watching all along. Until then, my friends, take care.